Hello, gardening friends. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, and I thought what I'd talk about today is something I should have really mentioned many months ago when I first started recording this backyard. It's one of the most important things to anyone planning a garden, and it's also one over which you have absolutely no control over, and that is what direction does your house face? What direction is your garden in, so that you'll know whether or not you're going to get sun or shade. This is basically a wintry time of year. The sun is low in the sky, and most of my backyard, since my house faces this side of the house, I'm facing north right now. The front of my house is south, and the front of that garage faces south. But notice where shade falls. It's noon. There's the trash man coming. Shade falls all the way to here, which basically means all winter long my deck is going to be in shade. It's never going to see the sun, and therefore most blooming flowers are not going to do well in the shade. Here you can see is one of the few sunny spots in my yard. Here you can see the shade from the camellias. And again, the shady back deck. That's one of the reasons why I choose cyclamen there, because they will bloom in the shade. Not everything blooms in the shade. The banana trees, of course, have grown up into the sun. And actually, during the peak of summer, the sun is pretty much straight overhead, so this deck is totally in sun most of the day. And that's why I've mentioned in the past my roses get fried during the heat of the day because they're in sun all day long. It is worth mentioning while we're here, this is the second day of bloom on my golden chalice vine. You can see this one bloomed yesterday, and it's, if I put it in the shade, you can see it's starting to turn yellow or golden. This one opened last night. I tried to get the scent. They're most strongly scented at night. And it does have a citrusy scent with a very, very, very faint scent of something medicinal like mothballs. There's, of course, my datura. The nice thing about plants in pots is you can move them around. And when I first started gardening back here, that's what I used to do. I would have 4 identical pots, and I rearranged them every week so that 2 would be in the sun one week, and I'd put the other 2 in the shade and then flip-flop them. But as I've gotten older, it's just way too much trouble. So what I try to do here is plant things that I know will do well in shade. And so that's typically things that don't bloom. And actually, one of the reasons this strawberry strawberry planter is on a pedestal is actually, as the winter progresses, that's the only way to keep it in the sun. And there you can see my little Johnny Jump Up blooming. I twisted this a couple days ago to keep the blossoms are always going to face the sun. So if you keep turning the planter, it will bloom. And then to give you a little bit more idea of what the rest of the yard looks like, light-wise. Again, this is noon, and there's very little sunny patches back here. It's one of the reasons I do have trouble growing grass. You can see this statue of David is totally in the shade, and it will remain in the shade for the rest of the day. Fatsias likewise, but they do well in the shade. Palms do okay in the shade. Of course, the palms are causing the shade. The bigger ones have grown up into the sunlight and they're screening out the base of the plants here. But all of these do well in shade. So really what I've got for a north-facing garden is mostly things that thrive in shade. Here, these are spectacular today. My autumn carnation azaleas. It's almost as nice a display as they have in the spring. You'll be able to see that one shortly when I start harvesting the satsumas. Yeah, this is pretty much the last of the sunny spots in my backyard. So that's one of the reasons I don't have a lot of blooming flowers back here, is I don't have a lot of sun in the winter. So I've learned through the years of things that will do well back here. And one of the ones you don't see right now are the little, the mini carnations. They'll do well in the winter time. They don't need a lot of sun. By the way, I do want to mention these agaves. They make perfect pot plants, and they will grow to the size of the pot that you put them in. This one really won't get any taller or bigger than this. However, were I to plant that in the ground, the agave would get probably about 6 foot tall over my head. What happens is the roots just girdle around inside the pot. It doesn't seem to bother the plant any. That plant has been in that pot now for about 10 years. So it maintains. I do fertilize, because I'm sure there's hardly any dirt left, and I'm also fairly certain that the roots have gone through the drainage hole and have probably found the soil underneath. One thing I do to all my agaves is I take fingernail clippers and I clip the sharp tips of them off. It just helps prevent skewering the people that mow my lawn. You can't really do anything about the sharp bits along the side, because that would be massacring the leaves if you were to strip those off. So I just tend to get rid of the long needles at the tip. But again, if you got a little agave like the one down here that's growing, and you put that in a pot that's 3 inches, 4 inches in diameter, it'll stay that size for many, many years. I'm talking 6-7 years. It's really not going to grow till you upsize the pot. So agaves make really good pot plants. And that's about it for today. So there is hope for those of you that have north-facing gardens that have to deal with shade. You just have to learn what does well in that climate and plant accordingly. Have a good day.